What's good, y'all? I'm Justin Stanley.
And I'm Ashby.
In summer 2021, we sold our stuff and started living full-time in our Coleman Rubicon trailer.
We're traveling across the U.S. to get to know ourselves, each other, and the beautiful, complicated, messy country that bore us.
Hit that subscribe and like button to join us as we find out what it really means
To find our way home.
So we left Virginia, I want to say it was like August 30th or September 10th. It's like one of those time periods. I think it was August 30th maybe, or around that time. We went from where we were staying at Westmoreland Campground in Montrose, Virginia. We drove through Maryland to Pennsylvania. It was our longest driving day. You drove that whole way.
I mean, it wasn't...
We got up really early.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, we drove up to Tioga, Pennsylvania. I had never been to Tioga, Pennsylvania.
You
I'd never
were
been
very
to this part of
called
Pennsylvania
to it,
at all.
though. Do you remember
Literally, well, this is what happened. When we needed to go to New York at one point, I looked up campgrounds around New York City so that maybe we could just drive up to New York and just stay in that area. There was nothing that I thought we should go to that was very close to New York City. But I did find a lot of different things in Pennsylvania and in New York State. And one of the places in Pennsylvania that really stood out to me was this place called Ives Run, which is in Tioga, Pennsylvania. I'd never been to this part of Pennsylvania before. Had you ever been there before?
No way.
Tioga is like, it's an Amish country. It's right next to the border of New York State. I was trying to look up what Tioga means. It's an Indian word that means at the forks or like crossroads, which land that we were on in Tioga, Pennsylvania. Haudenosaunee and the Susquehannock people. Haudenosaunee is a confederacy. It's just people who join together. The confederacy that I am most aware of is the Southern Confederacy. And I just think it's very interesting that indigenous people and Southern white people use the same language to describe themselves.
When they come together resist...
To resist America.
Right, wow.
It's just interesting that it's called a confederacy, almost.
I think it speaks to the humanness, regardless of your political affiliation. You know what I mean? I think it speaks to the humanity of like how we all want the same things, of like safety and resources, needs, food, shelter. You know, at the end of the day, we're really all the same.
But this town is like right on a lake called Hammond Lake that is now a reservoir. And it is an incredible body of water. Like the drive up there is so beautiful. There is a lot of natural water, the Susquehanna River, there's all kinds of shit. And so getting up there was just really beautiful. They called some parts of that area the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania, or like Pennsylvania Grand Canyon or some shit like that. I had never heard of it before. Yeah.
Oh, I took a really nice video of myself. I felt like it was about to rain and nobody was around, and I was just like feeling free. And I took my clothes off and I jumped in the water, and I had set up the camera. And an interesting thing about the camera is that as I walked in, it shifted slightly to a way better angle. Totally, like it was God, you know. But I loved shooting it, and I loved editing it, and I loved seeing myself in a way that I never really had, like let myself see my body like out in the open and not confined to like a mirror or like a small place. I don't really take that many pictures of myself, and so it was really nice. That place, I'm telling you, there was a lot of change that happened internally for me, and that was one of the markers. But that was a Lake Hammond dip. You did yoga in the lake. You did a lot of really sweet things in the lake.
I did yoga in the lake. I thought I saw a snake in the lake. You pushed me in the lake.
I did, yeah. I pushed you in the lake. I would have done it differently again, the pushing in the lake. Didn't mean to hurt your elbow.
It was a good time. I enjoyed that water. Did we hike there? I went for a run. We walked around. It wasn't what I would call a hike though.
I had this very beautiful morning where I was on a run and I went over to, it was like a little hidden place that had picnic tables, so it wasn't hidden to everybody, but you could have missed it real easy. And it's just, I watched the sunrise on this beautiful inlet, and I thanked God for sure. That was one of my sunrises.
We saw the sunrise and sunset there quite a bit.
Well, we also wake up kind of early in general. And you know, with the RV, sometimes you're just awake for the sunrise and you live outside. So you'll either catch it visually or not, but you'll see it all coming up. And we definitely see the sunset. All these mountains, all these trees, like we're really intentionally in places where I'm sure the sunrise and the sunset is very, very beautiful no matter where you are. But there's something about being in a place I haven't seen before that is just untouched looking natural land. It's really amazing, powerful.
But we stayed in Tioga for 10 days, almost 2 weeks. It might have been 2 weeks.
Which again is kind of like a long time.
Yeah, that's a long time for RVing. Like generally, because you, in a lot of places, are not supposed to stay at a campsite longer than 14 days. So that is why you end up moving around to different places, even if it's different campsites in the same campground. So to stay somewhere for that long is a pretty substantial period of time. And I felt like we got to know Tioga and then the town next to it called Mansfield, where we spent a lot of time. Mansfield, Pennsylvania. That town was so interesting. It was like 5 minutes long. There was a college in it. We looked up the property costs for houses and I thought they were very affordable, which made me think that it's like all these rambling 19th century farmhouses. I was like, all these bitches are haunted. This like haunted street, literally. Oh my God. There were also a lot of gay people there. There's been a good amount of gay people everywhere.
A lot of gay people. There's just gay people everywhere. I feel like there's just gay people everywhere.
God. And Tioga was like fucking wood town. Like everywhere that you drive, there's somebody selling firewood. And I notice it because we're in Vermont. There's not, people don't have firewood everywhere like that.
Just like on their front, like if they're on a big road, like they'll just cut up firewood and put it on the front and leave a box and you put cash in it. This shouldn't be that great
honor system. There's another little town up there, I can't remember what it's called. Do you remember it's where the Lowe's was? We ended up having to go there because we had to buy a generator in Pennsylvania. All kinds of shit happened in Pennsylvania.
So much. I mean, we were there long enough, but also a lot of shit happened.
A lot of shit happened. In fact, the struts on the car broke. The suspension system on the car broke at one point. So we had to get the car repaired. I remember noticing the sound with the car when we were driving in and around the second campsite in Ives Run.
Yeah, I think that was about right when it started. It was disconcerting because it just started as like a little squeak and then the squeak got really loud and then stopped being a squeak and it started being a thunk. And when you go from squeak to thunk, it doesn't mean it's fixed itself.
Yeah, totally.
And I spent a lot of money in community college learning that in my first degree that I didn't finish. It makes sense though, because it's a 2009.
Yeah.
And it just started all of a sudden hauling this intense load like every day.
Yeah. I feel like the BMW X5 is a car that can haul. It is not a car that is made for hauling.
Right.
A Ford F-150, my dream truck, that is a car that is meant for hauling.
She's gonna look so hot in that.
You're not ready.
Oh, I know I'm not.
I'm not ready.
Anyway.
So we had to get the car repaired. It was in the shop for 2 days. So we had to go to Corning to pick up a rental car. But it was still like a big thing for us because the closest place to get it fixed was Mansfield. It's a relatively short drive, but not nearby Ives Run in Tioga, Pennsylvania. So we were gonna have to get back to the campsite and just get around while we didn't have the car. And the closest place to rent a car, we called everywhere in Tioga. They had no availability, which doesn't surprise me because it's a very small town. And the closest place to get it was in Corning, New York at the airport there. So the day that we needed to drop off the car, we drove to Corning, New York, picked up a rental car, budget rental car, where they also really didn't have very many cars, and then kept the car for 2 days, picked up our car the next day, and then drove the rental car back the day after that. That's where we went in Pennsylvania. What's the update on Wi-Fi connectivity issues? Okay, when we were in Pennsylvania, Tioga did not have the worst connection. Like, I feel like
I only
we
learned
found
that
the worst connection. Yeah. So now I feel like anything else that has happened is like, whatever. But I remember that there were parts where it was not great. You definitely worked at the library quite a bit, at Mansfield Community Library.
Wi-Fi wasn't great there either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the coffee shops were the place that the Wi-Fi was the best, but it wasn't great there either.
All right, so
Thanks, I get it.
It's hard because what makes campgrounds so great is that they are away from civilization. And part of being away from civilization is being away from cell towers.
Goofy says to Max, we're gonna get away from it all.
I don't want to be away from it all, Dad.
And Max says, but I like
it
all.
I don't mind not having a strong connection.
Well, yeah, I mean, uploads continue to be the thing that's
the
hardest
only thing that sucks.
Because we can do much of our like producing and even much of our editing at home. We just can't move it to the teams that needs it.
You can't put it on the internet.
Put it on the internet.
Yeah, so that part is hard.
Or anywhere.
But I appreciate being disconnected.
Yeah, it's
overall.
not the worst place to move from, I would say.
I worked a lot from the campsites because coffee shops are not the best place to take calls.
Right.
And I would say that the vast majority of my day is spent on calls, talking to people about various things.
I think through this new schedule, I've consolidated many, not all, but many of my calls to Thursdays. And my second biggest call day is Tuesdays. But I've really left Wednesdays for production in a lot of ways when I can. And Mondays and Fridays are travel days. Which means our 3-day intensive work week is slammed. And since you have more clients and brands and everybody that you're working with, certainly than I do.
It's more like I have more team members
and more team members than I do. I feel like I do the driving because that's time. It's really valuable time that you can be communicating with people.
And I do.
And editing in the car. So that's shaken down pretty well. I like driving like a lot. I
think on days when I don't need to have calls as much, that you should, I need to get more comfortable driving with the trailer. And I think that you should spend that time editing. Because that would be really good editing time for you.
Yes, it really would.
Yeah, so I mean, in Pennsylvania, we didn't really go to hotels. In Vermont, which we'll talk about in the next episode, we're literally at this moment in a motel. So it's been a little bit more complicated, I think, than just cell service. Generally speaking, disconnecting, I think, is a great thing for me personally.
And generally speaking, we really learned a lot about, even more about that in Pennsylvania at these primitive campsites. And I feel like that was a real graduation in our RV life. What do you think? First of all, coming to Pennsylvania, the farther we get north, the farther away from North Carolina we get. I know you said this, I hate to spoil it, but it's true for me too. I feel like a different person.
I'm a completely different person.
When I meet people now and introduce myself and talk about who I am, for instance, I'm like, oh yeah. Like I listen to myself talk and I'm like, wow, I hold these values. I feel very steadfast in them and not self-righteous, which is a marker of like truth for me or something on some level, right? Where I'm like, I don't have to like scream this. It's just true about me for the first time.
Like, I don't need for anyone else to agree with
or
me.
believe me even. I don't need it. I'm just doing me. So, I don't want to give that to Pennsylvania, although I think a lot of those reflections happened in Pennsylvania. You and I fought in ways that were so productive and helpful, I feel like, when we were in Pennsylvania. Really getting some shit out and seeing what we're made of,
Totally.
And those, gosh, I mean, I can't tell you how much of a catalyst of these kinds of real talk, value-driven experiences can be had when you like take away the internet and all your friends and familiar roads and food and I'm learning who I am. I can't even tell you how much more I know about myself when I don't watch TV every night to go to sleep, for instance, because I'm just sitting there sort of thinking about stuff and reflecting and meditating, and all of it feels so valuable. I just feel really grateful. I just want to say that.
I fully identify with what you're saying, and I think I have discounted the loss of connectivity and how impactful that has been.
Yeah.
I have not been watching anything on Netflix. I'm behind on everything. I've not been listening to music that I wasn't already listening to, reading books that are not what I chose to bring with me. Like, everything is so curated at this point and also quieter, and having less connection with the people too that I used to see all the time or talk to more. And I feel like I do still talk to the people that I talk to. Like, I talk to people on my team, I talk to family members, my friends who are family. But like, other than that, I'm really not talking to anybody. And so it does mean that there's just this new understanding of self for me personally that feels certainly different than when I was living in Durham, which was like 5 minutes ago, and that's what's so weird to me.
It feels like it was long and far ago.
I think that's it.
Okay.
See you next time. So there's a fat one and a black one. Smoke a little pot. I don't know, you know, I like lesbians. I got a gay nephew, so I mean, I voted for Obama.